is 21 hours 5. Hello, good evening to you, and welcome to tonight's edition of The Police and You. The name is Gouveia, Mike side, keeping you company for the next 55 minutes or so as we give you a chance to be able to interact with the Ghana Police Force. And tonight it gives me great pleasure to introduce to us on The Police and You our guest in studio who will be talking with us, none other than the regional commander of Regional Division 5, none other than Senior Superintendent Kurleigh Simon. Good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Stan. Good evening to our radio listeners, and thank you for having me. This is my first time as the regional commander for Region 5 on this program. I think when you hosted the last time, I was on AFEL, someone was sitting in for me, so it's a pleasure being here.
Definitely, and it's a pleasure to have you here too. And for those of you who are in tune, remember, you can actually follow the conversation right here on 102.5 FM. You can actually join us on the Ghana Police Force's Facebook page, as well as our YouTube page for the live stream where it is happening. If you've got questions, make sure once it is related specifically to Regional Division 5, the commander who's here, who can be able to answer that, he will be able to answer that. So you could send your messages or your questions via WhatsApp on 6320147. That's 6320147. You can call us on 226-4762. But as is of usual, we'll get right into the program. Let me just ask you, Commander, now, Regional Division 5, your region. Tell us your boundaries and how many stations you've got that make up your division.
Okay, just to refresh the memories of our listeners, Region 5 is a spin-off from what was then B Division. As you know, the Force Administration took a decision to regionalize the policing divisions. As such, Region 5 was formed on the 4th of October 2019. I was posted to Region 5 on the 6th of October last year, and I've been there since. So like I said, I was on AVL some time ago. I'm back at work for the past 2 months, and as such, here I am. For the boundaries, the Region 5 to the north is the Atlantic Ocean. That's our boundary to the north. And we have responsibility for 8 miles offshore. Beyond the 8 miles, I think the Coast Guard, Marine Section of GDF, takes responsibility thereafter. To our east is the western bank of the Waterways River. To the west is the eastern bank of the Michael River. And our southern boundary, a bit complicated, is the watershed between the tributaries of the Borbis and Abari River and the Borbis and Maikoni rivers. That's way deep down into the backlands. In terms of our stations, we have 4 stations and 2 outposts. Fort Wellington, which is the divisional headquarters, Blaymont Police Station, and the Weldad Police Station that makes up subdivision number 1. Maikoni Police Station is the headquarters of subdivision 2, and the 2 outposts we have there is Moro Point in the Maikoni River and the number 10 outpost.
Number 2 and the number 10.
Number 10 and Moro Point, 2 outposts.
So yours is a division that has to deal with marine also.
Correct.
We've got to, it's not just seeing police in motor vehicles, but you've got to have boats too.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct.
What kind of, would you say is the population as well as your staffing, like,
Okay.
for the police force in your region?
Based on the last census, the figures we got from the last census provided by Bureau of Statistics, the population is about 55,000, and my staffing, not adequate human resource or short of human resources. So definitely the division is not so short.
So you probably will be looking to make sure you scramble some more ranks
Yeah.
to
Well,
come to your division.
we are dependent on whatever the police training school, the police college puts out, and our force administration decide to dispense with the graduates from the police training.
All right. Now, given this, evidently, one of the things that we've seen also is that a lot of community policing groups are in many regions. Now, in your region, given that, what kind of support are you seeing coming from the community policing groups in your region?
We have good support from the community policing group. As a matter of fact, our active groups as it stands right now is 23 with a membership of 420. All right. So it's a voluntary something. They volunteer their services to do patrols within their area of local where they're living. One of the issue we have with them is because it's voluntary. The problem for fuel for the vehicles. That's kind of an issue, but they still make that sacrifice to come out and give us tangible support. When we have our mass patrols, they are out there in their numbers to assist us.
All right. Now, you talk about 23,
23 active groups
and that's ranging from
from
one
my
end
yes from
to the other.
my county district straight to Blairmont Police District.
Alright. And so you find that they're very supportive of
They're
you.
very supportive.
Alright. Let me just divert a little, turn our attention. Just recently coming out of your region, we've seen lots of reports about accidents. And I know this must be a sore point because it's one of the main things that really hampers, because you've got that main corridor that links Region 6 to the rest of Guyana, that is especially Region 4 to the headquarters. And there are lots of accidents that are happening, but given the fact that we've got Road Safety Month now, that was just launched under the theme Arrive Alive, Stop Speeding, Don't Drink and Drive for 2021-2022. What is being done in your region to curb accidents and incidents on the roadways?
All right. Well, most definitely, I think over the past 2 weeks, my region was the most deadliest region in terms of road fatalities. Um, 3 out of those 4 fatal accidents that we had, or fatal incidents, somewhere, I consider them freak accidents. All right. I think in one instance we had a young lady riding on a motorcycle, attempted to U-turn and fell onto the road. No one hit her. Road surface was dry, just just like that. She lost control of her motorcycle. The other incident we had was at Drilltown, Myconi. 2 young men on a motorcycle lost control, rode into the trench. No one hit them. And the other freak accident I'll consider as the one in Branch Road, Myconi. The young men in the car drove off the road into the canal.
I remember.
But in terms of our in terms of our efforts to minimize road accidents and to curb um, incidents of road fatalities and so forth, we started sometime early in this year, and we have continued it to do traffic management. We know the rush hour period in the mornings from people leaving the eastern side of the Barbis River, leaving Quarantine Coast to come to Georgetown between 5:30 and 8:39. So we put vehicles escorting the traffic out of our jurisdiction, or through our jurisdiction, into Region 4C. In the afternoon, we do it on the reverse between 4:30 to 6. we do the same thing. What we find happening is that in the absence of the escort or person's speed, or if persons are not caught in the line being escorted, they speed. If you know West Coast Barbados Public Road properly, it's a road made up of plenty turns. So sometimes, most of the times, some of the accidents are one where they lost control, maneuvering the turn, go off the road. Since Road Safety Week has started, or Road Safety Month has started, we have conducted our white light campaign. We have started lecture to schools and drivers. We have started traffic enforcement, DUI, and so forth, and that is ongoing.
And but let's talk a little bit about that now too, because yeah, evidently when you've got the police presence on the roadways, you're finding people will tend to adhere to. Uh, but you have some of those accidents that would happen too in the dead of night, as they say, when people take it for granted that, oh, there's no police in this turn or around there. How are we going to treat with that? And particularly, as you did mention, with those white lights, which are, I oftentimes like to say, those blinding lights to oncoming vehicular traffic.
Okay. We try to maintain a heavy presence on the road as much as possible, and we look at the weekend activities in as much as we are in this COVID pandemic, right? People still want to socialize and so forth. So we look at, analyze our accident timings and try to put systems in place, have ranks on the road to curb it. But like you said, in the absence of a police rank or police ranks on the road, persons will do what they think is best. I do traverse the road sometimes driving myself, and I can know when a police rank is on the road or when police ranks are on the road, because the oncoming traffic, the driver will signal you, either pointing downwards and showing you to slow down, police ranks are on the road, or continuously flash the lights and so forth. And what you find, as soon as they pass wherever that rank or those ranks are, they speed.
They continue, yeah. I'm aware of that. So is it maybe a matter of having speed humps or something you probably got to look at to curb some of that?
The fact that West Coast Public Road is a free-flowing highway, I don't believe speed humps will be the best call.
What would you suggest, or what would you say to persons? Because when we look at figures in terms of accidents, it's not just fatal accidents, but you've got many other accidents, serious accidents, where and it's important that we should not be, damaging life and limb. And as you rightly did say, but I understand there are people who tell themselves, well, you know what, I want to move from one district to the other as quickly as possible. And especially in an area where they feel that they either know well and they will do the thrills, or in some cases they don't even know it, and they just blaze it.
As I said before, West Coast Barbados Public Road is a very technical road to drive. If you don't know it, you shouldn't be speeding. As a matter of fact, you should, as much as possible, try to comply to the speed limit of the road. And there are certain parts of the road where the speed limit is 55 km to the hour. I think there are certain parts it jumps up to around between 60 to 8 km to the hour. And if you're gonna drive within the prescribed speed limit, it gives you ample thinking time, braking time, time to maneuver if you need to, because it's a road also that has, because of cattle rearing and so forth, that will have animals on the road. So it's just about adhering to the speed limit, knowing your surroundings. If you're going through a built-up area, there's no need for you to be speeding. You got to cater for someone who's not catering for themselves.
That's another thing that incidentally you just brought up that some people do complain about. They oftentimes mention in social media, why don't the police do something about these animals on the roadways? Right? Not until they are almost on an animal that they actually see them, especially cows, particularly at night. I think only the other day, though it wasn't in your district, it was right in Region 4A, in Mandela Avenue, where a car hit a horse crossing the road. But there are many persons who are complaining about these animals, whether it's the horses, it's the cows, the goats, sheep, you name it, that are clogging the roadways and impeding their driving.
All right. We had this tree catching unit operating out of the Ministry of Home Affairs. I can't say for certain how active that unit still is. All right. Um, when when there are animals on the road, stray animals on the road, sometimes we impound those animals. The owner is required to come and pay a fee before the animal is released. If the animal is involved in an accident, the driver is permitted to bring the animal also to the station. What you find is that most times many of these animals are unbranded, and as such you cannot establish ownership.
So like some other regions, you're finding that problem too,
Same problem.
unbranded.
And as we go forward into the program, I'll explain something else to you. We're concerning animals in Region 5.
Wow. No, that obviously would compound the problem
Correct.
and any remedial issues that you've got to it. But of course, 21 hours to 21, this is Police and You. We've got on the program Senior Superintendent Kurleigh Simon, who is the Commander of Regional Division 5 with us on the program. Now, Commander, you know, divert a little bit from that. You hinted earlier about us being in a pandemic still. And just recently, for example, many persons would have seen that, based on the COVID guidelines, the curfew time has been extended and so on. But there's been active engagement to enforce the COVID-19 restrictions. How is that coming along for you?
Um, we have been trying our best to ensure that the guidelines are adhered to. In terms of enforcement, let's look at social activities. I, on the weekends particularly, by 9:30, will get within my divisional group, WhatsApp group, to reiterate the need to get the patrols active in terms of shutting down all social activities, if there are any, because we know what permissions are granted in terms of social activities, particularly for bars and so forth. We have the Coffee Corps patrol. That's a joint patrol between the police and GDF. We have a unit operating within our district. I think early in the year, Region 5 would have had the lowest in terms of infection for COVID-19 um, within Guyana. I know there was a spike in the rivering area of Moroccoby, that's in Maigoni Creek. We took some action that's jointly between the Guyana Police Force and the Regional Task Force. We sent nurses and police ranks in there to ensure that the curfew was being adhered to, guidelines were being adhered to, and that was brought under control. But as it stands, we still do education, we still do the enforcement.
And now that school is reopened, I've noticed, and I think only today we would have seen, you would have had some of your ranks engage with students at some of the schools,
Correct.
not just about traffic issues, but also about the COVID measures. Um, this is going to be sustained throughout the Christmas period as you prepare for that, which is going to be a busy period too.
Well, it's going to be easier to manage school, but coming down to the Christmas period, which we know will be a very busy period in terms of both foot traffic, vehicular traffic, commercial activities. Right, that will pose a challenge for us. As a matter of fact, we are in the process of fine-tuning our Christmas policing plans, hoping to have that launch Sunday coming, which is the prescribed date when we start our Christmas policing operations. So we have factored that aspect of it into our policing plan, because that poses a risk both for the police force or police ranks and members of the public. And I hope that we will have collaboration with the Ministry of Health COVID Task Force in Region 5, that we can do some sensitization even during the hustle and bustle of Christmas shopping.
So a journalist asked a question that if it is that those ranks who are enforcing the COVID guidelines, how much are they adhering to the COVID guidelines? Most in your region, more specifically as it relates to being vaccinated.
The region, as it stands right, the division as it stands right now, our vaccination is about 75%.
Awesome.
Right? Ranks have availed themselves to be vaccinated. There are still some ranks that have not been vaccinated. And we have spoken to them, I think, even today, some ranks were at headquarters to see DC operations in relation to vaccination. But in addition to our efforts to sensitize ranks in terms of vaccination, it's a must that they dress with when their face mask while performing duty. They have on their face mask.
Alright, and the really necessary distance and the sanitizing.
Correct.
Those are things that are happening
At
the
all
stations.
stations, at all stations. And we have masks available for even persons who come to the station without masks to give them.
So that if a person comes to make a report, they don't have a mask.
We have masks available to give them. We do not turn away anyone from the station.
But could that person be charged for breaching COVID?
We look at
Restrictions?
the situation that would have caused the person to come to the station, and then we have to be flexible in some instances. So we wouldn't really charge anyone.
Okay. You provide that if it is that you don't charge.
Correct.
But you're not saying that all and sundry should just come without.
Exactly.
I like that. So I'm turning our attention a little bit now to your ranks, David. Before we get into some of the things that they police there, what would you say is the mental well-being of your ranks? Particularly as it relates to the fact that one, we're in this pandemic, which has been sustained for a while now, and policemen and women have still, we know, for example, most of the kinds of work would have had some sort of either one day on, one day off, or partial kind of working. When it comes to policing, you don't have that, and then they still have to go home and deal with their whatever issues they have at home and so on. What's the state of the mental health of your ranks?
I think by now the ranks are getting accustomed to the situation, and it hasn't curbed their enthusiasm to do the job. Right? They've gotten accustomed to the COVID-19 pandemic and the restrictions therein. Yes, there were some concerns early up in terms of them having to come to work and then got to deal with prisoners and have to go home to their families, particularly for those persons or those female ranks who had young children at home and so forth. Well, like I say, they have gotten accustomed to it, and their mental state is relatively good. And it's ironical that you asked the question, because if 2 weeks ago we had the training session, 20 ranks took part in it in terms of social psychoanalysis. So it's an ongoing program throughout the force. We have benefited from our force batch of training, and we expect to have continuous training in that area to deal even with internally and particularly externally the persons that we come into contact with.
In some regions, one of the things that was happening, I don't know, and so I want to ask you if you've had this incidents happening. Some members of the discipline services, which includes police men and women, were directly breaching the COVID measures by hosting parties against the protocols, and even in some cases putting other non-disciplined services members to the front or to front these activities. But upon investigations, some of those other commanders discovered it was, might have been a policeman or policewoman who was actually doing this. Have you had any of those situations in your region? And if you've had, how you dealt with it?
I heard about such situations. I think there were some instances. Don't want to label any commander or anything, or label anyone that was before me. There was an event called SWAC Sunday. My information was police ranks were involved. Immediately on my resumption from leave, and I heard about SWAC Sunday, I actually shut down SWAC Sunday. And there's the Good Faith Beach, No Far Beach, Myconi. That is another area I shut down. I heard police ranks were involved. Right? But like you said, there were persons who were fronting. I didn't wait for the event to happen. I sent out a warning that there should be no such event on this Sunday or any Sunday onwards. So that was totally shut down.
Are you finding that, therefore, people are maybe finding unorthodox ways to then congregate, to party, to lime, and that kind of thing, like we've heard about also, these secret location parties and so on?
Yeah, most definitely. We've had several flyers of secret location parties. Even last Saturday, there was supposed to be one somewhere in Bath. Right? I got the information. Immediately, I contacted the officer in charge of Fort Wellington Station, the OC for the number 2 number 1 subdivision, and the station sergeant, and told him, listen, get to this location, speak to the promoter, this event would not happen. Alright, my information is that the event did not go on. It was called off. And yes, definitely, like I said, SWAC Sunday was in the back down. Number 27 back down. Right.
So you're finding very unorthodox ways.
Correct, that's correct.
You did say the beach also you had to shut down.
No Far Beach, yeah.
No Far Beach. All right. Now with that in mind, let's look at the physical structure and aesthetics of your police stations. So we've been going around and we've been seeing that a lot of police stations and even outposts under some sort of construction, enhancement, and so on. Are there any within your region that have been identified or earmarked for such, or going through any?
All right. Early in the year, we had some renovation work being done at Blairmont Police Station. Blairmont. That's at the extreme, the eastern extreme. As you know, because of the regionalization of the divisions, a new headquarters was built. The headquarters are waiting furnishing and handing over to commence operations or occupation of the headquarters right at Fort Wellington, which will free up space at Fort Wellington Police Station itself, because the headquarters building is separate and apart from the station, a new building. We did a proposal to have Myconi Station to be rebuilt. As you know, Myconi Station is one of those old colonial style buildings, not fitted with the amenities of a modern police station. Because also of the regionalization, there is a 18 km gap between Myconi Station to the next police station, which is actually in 4C, that's the Micah Police Station. So there is no police station within the 18 km gap. As such, servicing those areas can be kind of difficult in terms of getting a quick response to any eventuality or emergency. We did a proposal also to have a station built half and half, at an halfway distance. That's somewhere around Carlton area. There's supposed to be some vacant lands there. We did a proposal to have a station built there, or at least a outpost built there, so that we can properly service that area. But for the Fort Wellington Police Station, I guess when we were able to move across to the headquarters, like I said, it will free up space that we could operate, or the station can operate in keeping with what a modern station is, because we love the amenities of extra rooms for interviews and so forth. Because we're kind of crowded there right now.
What about for the inland, based on your coverage area?
Like I said, we have the Moore Point outpost in the Maikuni River, and the number 10 outpost, that's back, um, I forget this area, anyway. Back well, close to Weldad, but more in Maikuni district. I don't think there's a need for any additional station or outpost further back off the main coast.
Those will be adequate, but at least pretty soon a brand new regional headquarters and some refurbishing of some of
Some of the
others,
stations, established stations.
along the coast there. Awesome. And that makes me want to know, ask you, so in your division, what would you say are some of the more prevalent crimes that really occur? Oftentimes, the truth be told, as the PRO, we get mostly it's the accidents. Now and then there are certain other things, but tell us about the prevalent crimes that happen
Alright.
here.
My most prevalent crime in Regional 5 is cattle rustling. And like I mentioned earlier, I told you I would speak to the issue of animals and branding of animals. Alright? We have many cattle farmers there. All the ranches are off the main road, deep down in the back dam. One of our limitation is accessibility, and that is because of not having a mounted section or the required motor vehicle to traverse the backlands. So you find at least 2-3 times a week you have reports at either one of the stations about cattle rustling, persons losing their animals. Alright? We try to be as diligent as possible in terms of monitoring cattle in transit. That's persons buying animals, transporting them from one area to the other. We try to be as diligent as possible in terms of checking those vehicles and the animals that are in there, for brand, to ensure that we have established proper ownership and so forth.
But if you've got this situation like you mentioned, that excuse me, the problem being is that there are many persons who are not branding animals because again of the problem of them being along the roadways, so that ownership cannot be identified. Now when it comes to the rustling, how are they able to identify their own cattle?
The main complaint is that this person brand my animal or brand my cow and has sold it. So when you get the vet to examine to see if there was a previous brand, there is none. Right? That means that you cannot claim ownership because you failed to brand your animal within the stipulated period, which is 6 months of worth. And you renew the brand every time the brand starts to fade. You renew the brand. That is not the case. Someone else brand the animal. You cannot come and say, oh, I know it by color, or whatever the case may be. That does give the police enough information to work with.
The branding is what is important.
What is important, yeah.
How are you able to know to counter that, or what because if that's one of your more present, so what system you got in place now to deal with
most times we lodge the animal in dispute, we put up a report and send it for legal advice. Sometimes based on whatever evidence we're able to unearth, they might come back and say charge, or sometimes they say, listen, let the parties take private legal action. Or they say keep the animal in police care and put it up for auction sale.
Put it up for auction. So from all the feeding that the police would do, you at least be able to recoup some of the costs. Very interesting twist there, but are you getting much persons, given what you've been saying, paying attention to that, and at least seeking to heed those measures? to protect themselves. You got, in all fairness, I mean, you got
Well,
cattle, yes, you know, you understand. A man might tell himself, you know what, a cattle lying on the road, and if an accident happens, then it's not branded, then nobody can really pin it to me. But then, in the same breath, someone steals it, they want to come and report, and they need justice. And then, if it is, they don't get, as you would have explained, well, here, this was not branded, you can't give us the color. They take to Facebook, or social media, and they say the police is not giving them justice. Are you finding persons are then adhering to what you're
well,
advising?
well, most times it's only when they suffer losses they will then proceed to brand all their animals. That's a reactionary measure.
Reactionary.
As we are on the issue of crime, right? There are two other issues I want to touch on. One, what I've found is that the region is plagued with sexual activity within the teenage range, females. All right, I think on average we're dealing with at least 3 to 4 monthly. I've reached out to the probation and welfare officer, and we are in the process of formalizing a strategy to counter that by either going to the schools, because most times it's teenage females, it's school children, school girls, to address the issue sometime early in the new year. Right, that's another area of concern for us within the region, and it's a given that marijuana comes out of the Borbis area, but Region 5 is actually the transshipment point, the link between Region 4 and Region 6. We have had some seizures, as you know, right, through our roadblocks and our patrols. We are trying to be as vigilant as possible. Right. But the backlands creates a problem for us, because my information suggests that persons are using the backlands as a shortcut, beating the police roadblocks so that they could get into Region 4. But it's an area that we are monitoring. We do conduct our raids and so forth.
So you're more of a
Transshipment point,
as opposed to being
a cultivation,
a
area of cultivation.
area. Is there any particular reason for this, you would say?
I think, as I don't know if you're aware, just for the viewers' information, I was previous OC narcotic. Right, I spent 2 years working there, so I could tell you about Borbis River. Right, and then I worked Borbis when it was then B Division as deputy commander some 4 years ago. So I know all the ramifications out of the Borbis River area.
When it comes to policing along the riverine areas, so you're from Myconi.
Correct.
So you're talking about that waterway. You're talking about the waterway of the Barry, and you're talking even to the eastern side of, I believe it is,
Yeah.
of the Borbis River.
The western bank.
So
So we have
western-
Borbis River
And
also.
then
to do
you've
it.
got, as you mentioned, a certain amount of distance out at sea that is under your purview. Are you finding that maybe even for transshipment or passing through, when it comes to narcotics or other illicit things, that persons are using the waterways?
All right. We have capability at Myconi Station. We can service the Myconi River. But other than that, we are limited. And in particular, we do not have the capability, the marine capability, to deal with the 8 miles offshore in the Atlantic Ocean. So we are limited in that aspect. We did proposals to upgrade our marine capability within the region. As a matter of fact, we did several proposals. We were looking also for the mounted police to help police the backlands, and even the canine section within the region. So those are proposals that are at headquarters awaiting approval so that we could establish those areas within the region.
In the interim, is there any support, particularly for the marine section from Coast Guard on that side? Because we know also that they would have intercepted some stuff too.
Yeah, there is an established protocol in terms of getting Coast Guard involved. So if there's any eventuality, we know how to activate Coast Guard. Coast Guard will still operates independent of us within their domain. But if we need their assistance, we know what to do.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, now, Commander, let me just turn our attention now to some of your social interventions that have been in your region. And a lot of social interventions are not limited to COVID. Many are, the relationship that the Ghana police force is building. I'm aware, and I think earlier in the year we would have highlighted um, a project where one of the things that happens in your division is that you've identified some young ones, and you ensure that the financial resources that they need for school is taken care of by the police force. That is one such social intervention.
By
Um,
the division.
Sorry, in your division, right?
By the division.
By the division, correct. Tell me about some of the other social interventions that you've got going on, which also helps to mitigate crime.
All right. We have formed a few youth groups over the past year, in as much we're operating with limitations because of COVID. So we have that going on. A former member of the force reached out to me, and we are looking at in the Maikoni area to establish back Scout because there was a Scout group there. So we're looking to reestablish that Scout group. I am still big on assisting teenagers, school age children that are having difficulties going to school. And we have identified two teenagers recently. Unfortunately, we're talking about two teenage mothers here. Right? One recently gave birth, so we're giving her some time in the break of 2022. We're gonna have her registered and re-enrolled into school, and we're gonna take care of whatever school expense she has. All right. The other one, she's pregnant, so we don't want to force the issue too much or having her going through pregnancy and studying. I don't know if she will be in a position to handle that. So we have her on record to render assistance. Um, Christmas is coming. I had a meeting with my senior staff yesterday, and our plan is to give out from within us to at least 3 ampoules for each station district to persons in need or elderly persons. That doesn't take away from the fact that we have collaborated with, or we have been collaborating with the Republic Bank to give out gifts to children during the Christmas period also. So it's a collaborative effort, and we are taking the initiative of taking the lead role in certain areas. In respect to the young lady we spoke about earlier in the year, she did not write CX, or she's not writing CXC. She did not write CXC this year. She'll be writing next year, but we are still in touch with the school to ensure that she's on board, she's online to do what is required of her in terms of getting her education in order.
All right, so you've got a lot of these social interventions as it relates to young people,
Correct.
youths, and so on to help curb crime, and those partnerships, how are they coming along?
Very well. Right. Like I said, we having the support of the persons, and when we reach out to the business community, we get their support also.
Awesome. And what about other stakeholders, their partnerships with your region? Evidently, business people and others who most likely tell themselves, well, I can step in, I can help, fill in. You did mention Republic Bank
Yeah.
as one who partners.
Other stakeholders, particularly the business community, in terms of our road marking and so forth, they come along, they assist us. We have our Cops of Faith network, which is part and parcel of our social intervention. They are on board and active. Um, the RDC is very supportive of our policing efforts also. So we don't have much of an issue here either.
RDC, the Regional
Democratic
Council.
Council, correct.
All right. There are some areas that you go where there are station management committees. Are you having any in your region, or plan to have any in your region?
3 out of 4 of the established stations have station management committees, and
Awesome.
even this afternoon there was management meeting at Myconi police station. So, and I can say that they're active, their initiatives are very fruitful. Early in the year, we took a stance to ensure that the ranks welfare are looked at. There were some activities to raise funds, and those funds were utilized to ensure ranks welfare are taken care of at each and every one of the stations. All right. I think there's one outstanding project that's at Fort Wellington, and that was to rebuild the canteen. But part of it was done in terms of having a proper kitchen so that ranks can get meals there whenever needed, or meals can be cooked and ranks can be serviced whenever needed.
Awesome.
And that's all part in collaboration with the station management committee.
The station management committee. Awesome. So you've got the the support. So if you were to rate what the community's relationship with the police in your region is like, as it relates to the upholding of law and order, what would you say it is?
Stan, if I'm to reflect on the year of being in Borabis, I think everybody knows what Region 5 was last year, a month ago this time, comparing to what it is today. Alright? If I am to say, I will say that that's the first appointment within the Ghanaian Police Force that I got that I didn't want. Alright, I was very fearful about going to Borabis, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the people in Region 5 to giving me the support to help to bring back Region 5 to stability. Alright? The cooperation that I've gotten from members of society and the police ranks there was immense, and I'm thankful that Region 5 is now stable and peaceful. So that speaks for itself.
So it's an area you think you probably need to stay on a little bit more.
If I look historically at my appointments, I do not spend more than 2 years in an area, so I'm in my second year.
All right. Now, one of the things that is particularly interesting, and I know you did mention it earlier, that indeed we can recall when Regional Division 5 was one of those regions that boasted of not having COVID infections. And they consider themselves to be the safest out of all. Then after there was the outbreak
In Moroccobai.
at Moroccobai, you started, but then you saw it come further and further up to the coast. This obviously must be something of concern because, yeah, you were able to wear that feather in your cap as, having it under control. What kind of measures, along with the National Task Force, to be able to reduce it, are you working on?
Like I said, my challenge, or the challenge that we expect, is going into this Christmas period. So we don't want to wait until the Christmas hustle and bustle starts. Alright? I'm in contact with the regional health officer, and we will continue with the sensitization and education, and continue with our enforcement activities to ensure that we curb and possible bring down, minimize the spread of the COVID-19 virus.
As of August month end, it was reported that 50% of Region 5's adult population was immunized against the COVID. would you say that it's increased dramatically from then to now, or it's still a work in progress?
I'll say it's a work in progress. I do not have the exact figure, but I know that it's a work in progress. Efforts are still being made to sensitize people and to have them take the COVID-19 precaution vaccine.
Alright, alright. And I must say, given the fact that I think it's one of the first regions per se that was able to reach that 50% mark um, as quickly as they did as compared to other regions. So kudos to you and the team and your other stakeholders in terms of what you guys were doing to make sure that you were able to get those kinds of numbers. Want to turn back again. We did mention this thing about mental health, but I do believe now during the Forces anniversary, it was announced that they have a psychologist now on board
Okay.
to be able to work with police. But that whilst that person is stationed at headquarters, it is the hope to have a psychologist at in all regions uh, very soon. The thing about it that you hear some ranks talk about is that no, I don't need no psychology and I'm a madman or what's not, this are the people who sick, be sick. What would you say to your ranks who may feel that they are mentally too strong to actually sit with a psychologist?
I think the problem with most persons, particularly in jobs that are very taxing in terms of where you have to deal with your fellow mankind, is that they do not recognize exactly how much of a mental strain it puts on them. All right. Um, as an individual, I am able to one, not take work home or not take the stress of work home. And even if it does, right, I will take some time away from my family to sit and just detox the body, right? Because I don't want this for something, the slightest of issue to make me snap. So I just take the time. Um, Education is key, right? Sensitizing the ranks is very key. And part of the training I spoke about earlier is that there were four ranks out of the 20 that were trained were actually trained as trainers. So there's the decentralization. So we have persons within the division that have the knowledge that can dispense the knowledge through the division. But like I said, the ranks need to be made aware that it's not just a run in the mill situation they're dealing with. Because as you persons will come to the station with all manner of stress and they release those stressors on you. Right?
One of the things that we see happening, and some are genuine, whilst some could be made up. We know this, but let me just ask you this finally before we wrap up here. When it comes to complaints against ranks, how does your division deal with such?
All right. Some based on how the complaint is made or where the complaint is made. If it's a complaint emanating from the region, but the complaint is made at headquarters, OPR might take the lead role. If it's a complaint made to my office, and most times the complaints are actually verbal face to face, I will call the relevant station, right? Listen to the person, whatever the person complaint is, call the relevant station and have that issue ironed out and so forth. But in terms of written complaints, those complaints are investigated, reports are put up, sent for legal advice. And most times it's the deputy commander or the officer in charge of crime will do those investigations.
So, and a lot of times you try to make sure that it is not dealt with at that level where people could feel that, oh,
That
am I covering up because
for
it's
me, the poor, no one should come to my office as the commander and leave dissatisfied unless it's a situation that is beyond me. And if I believe it's a situation that is beyond me, I refer them to the office of the commissioner of police. And based on that comment I just made, one of the biggest challenge I have as the commander is to deal with land disputes issue. right? And as much as possible, I try to tell people, listen, land dispute, particularly if the matter is sub judice, the matter is before the court, I cannot get myself involved in it. I cannot allow the ranks to get involved in it. You need to go back to the court, let the court rule, and if the judge so desire, the judge is going to issue clear instructions as to what role the police can play thereafter, and so forth.
But it is not for the police.
It's
to
not for the
actually
police to
intervene.
get involved, to intervene.
Would you say that some of those, in some situations like that, you find that people, if it is that they come and you make a complaint, or you give them those kinds of reasonings, it's not
Most times they're not
satisfied.
satisfied. I'm speaking from a position of experience. Both when I was commander at 4B and now in my present capacity. It's very common, land dispute matters are very common in those two areas, Region 5 and particularly on the highway in 4B.
But the police cannot get involved unless the court gives
Yes,
directives.
correct.
I'll tell you what, it's certainly been a pleasure talking with you tonight. Anything you'd like to share with us before you run out of here, Commander?
Yes, as I mentioned, we are going into the Christmas period. My trust is that all Guyanese will be very vigilant because with the every shopping, every commercial activities, it will lend itself to being victim of opportunistic crimes. And you should be cognizant of your surroundings, minimize walking around with too much cash and flashing your cash. Establish network within your area that you're living so that you look out for each other. Note all strange activities and as fast and as far as possible, report them to your closest police or utilize the 911 system so that you could have police intervention.
Awesome. Like I said, thank you again for spending some time with us on The Police and You tonight, and we definitely look forward to having you again on future programs.
Stan permit me to be a bit boastful. You did not ask me about my crime stats.
I looked at the time and I realized that we are over the time.
Yeah, well,
So,
it will just take a
but
minute.
go right,
Right?
I'll do that.
As
Go
it
right ahead.
stands, Region
tell us.
5, I think in the police force right now has a vast reduction in crime comparatively to 2020. We were at 46.7% reduction in crime. Serious crime, that is. Alright?
46
0.7% decrease
decrease
in serious crime comparing to the same time last year. Alright? And I want to thank the ranks again for the efforts. I want to thank members of civil society in Region 5 for their cooperation.
Kudos to you and your ranks on that, and I think we probably have to have a special program to talk about how you've been dealing with such interventions that change that.
At the beginning of the year, I formulated my policing plan for the year, and I'm working my plan.
All right, thank you very much. Senior Superintendent Kurleigh Simon, who is the Commander of Regional Division, number 5 of the Ghana Police Force on Police and You tonight. It's been a pleasure keeping you company right here on the Voice of Ghana's 102.5 FM and on our Facebook and our YouTube page. On behalf of our camera crew from NCN and on behalf of Simeon Brown on our live stream at the Corporate Communications Unit, I'm Stan Gouveia saying thanks for joining us. Do enjoy the rest of your night.
Well, an hour run out by, I didn't realize that.
Huh?
An hour run out.